Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer, and welcome to Focus Activity 810. You find me here this afternoon at English in the City, located in Prato, and we're going to talk about the history of food today. So, for all of you who have interests in food, like talking about food, you like eating food, this is definitely the focus for you. Hi, Giacomo. Welcome back. Good to hear from you again today. And hello, Elena. It's nice to hear from you too. In today's focus, 810, the history of food, we're going to be talking about different foods. We're actually going to take a food quiz to test your food knowledge. We're going to go over passives and the origins of famous foods. Before we start, let's consider the grammatical makeup of passive phrases. And why do we use passive? Why not just keep everything in an active tense? Do we know how to form grammatically a passive phrase, either in the present or in the past, or even the present perfect? Let's take present simple. A simple statement, a simple phrase is the boy throws the ball. If we want to make it passive, we eliminate the subject. The object of that phrase becomes the subject, and the one who completes the action is not necessarily mentioned. For example, we said an active phrase would be the boy throws the ball. Passive, the ball is thrown by the boy. So the ball, being the object, becomes the subject because that's what we're concentrated on. And the boy, who was the subject, is either completely eliminated from the phrase or placed at the end of the phrase. The ball is thrown by the boy. Very good, Elena, exactly. Notice also the grammatical makeup in this sentence. The ball is thrown by the boy. The ball, the subject, is the verb to be in the present. Thrown, which we know is the past participle. So that's your grammatical makeup of a passive phrase. The ball is thrown. The verb to be is or are, and the past participle of the verb. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep that grammar formula in mind as we go through today's focus. Let's get started. We have three arguments here that if we were all together today, then it would be possible to discuss them face to face. But let's do the best that we can via internet, okay? The first argument, what are the most famous dishes from your region or country? Which is your favorite? And what is it made from? Now, we don't all come from the same country. And whatever country we're from, the food changes from region to region. Think about where you are from. Think about the region of that country you are from. And think about the food that you like to eat from that region, from your country. And then we'll consider together what it's made from. So while you're thinking about your favorite dishes, I'm going to talk about mine. As you may or may not know, I'm from the US, but the US is a very big country. Elena, you like steak? Ah, okay. Now, why don't you tell us, Elena, where are you from? And what region are you from in your country? La Drebolita. That's one of my favorite dishes too. but it's certainly not a dish that I grew up with. As I said, I'm from the US, and I'm from New York in the US. And the food we eat in the Northeast is very different than the food that they eat in other places. Oh, Elena, you're Italian. And Giacomo, are you Italian too? And your favorite is pizza. Very good. Oh, you were actually born here in Prato. So you're a local. You're a local. So in the Northeast of the US, we eat a lot of fish. We actually eat a lot of salmon and some beef as well, but not as much as in Middle America. We also eat a lot of rice and a lot of corn because the American cuisine is heavily influenced by the Native Americans that live there and used to live there more than now. You're Italian too, Giacomo. Yes. I've only been in Italy for we're nearing 20 years now. So the food that my children eat is influenced by the food that I grew up with and the food that they eat here. So they have a fusion of Italian and American cuisine, which means that whatever they pass on to their children will be very interesting, I'm sure. Well, Giacomo, you said that your favorite food is pizza. Let's think about what pizza is made from. And Elena, you said that one of your favorite dishes is vitellibolita. What is that made from? What are the ingredients that go into your favorite dish? One of my favorite dishes is actually, it's a poor man's dish, which means that the people who didn't have as much money used to make it more often. Vitellibolita is a soup. Hi, Teresa, how are you? Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Now, Teresa, we're talking about food, and right now we're talking about famous dishes from your country or region. Elena has just told us that her favorite is vitellibolita, which is a soup. And what kind of soup is it? Is it a meat soup or a fish soup? Is it vegetable based? What are the ingredients that go into it? It's made of bread and vegetables. Wow, that sounds really good. I know I've had it several times. I cannot make it because it seems like a very complicated dish. My favorite dish, as I said, is a dish of peas and rice. There are certain peas that are found on the islands, in the tropical islands, and also in the southern part of the US. They're called black-eyed peas, and they're wonderful with rice. I actually prefer them with brown rice. And on the side, we eat collard greens, which is a green leafy vegetable similar to chard, but it's a little bit tougher and more bitter. Let's look at our pizza recipe. To make pizza, you need to prepare a dough and top it with tomato sauce and mozzarella cheese or any other toppings you like. Now, Giacomo, do you make pizza too? I know that I make pizza. Traditionally, I make pizza every Saturday. The typical ingredient in vitellibolita is black cabbage. That sounds delicious. Now, we've considered three dishes. Teresa yet hasn't told us what she likes to eat, but we've talked about pizza. We've talked about the bread and vegetable soup that Elena has mentioned. You like spaghetti with clams. Very good. So we have some seafood in there too. Let's move on to the second argument. Which type of food do you think is most well known around the world? Oh, you don't make pizza, Giacomo, you just eat it. Well, maybe I can teach you sometime. My children say I'm not so bad at making pizza anymore. I've been making it now for a while, so I'm getting better every year. Spaghetti and clams is very easy to make. I have to say my forte is not cooking fish. It's something that I haven't been able to master yet. Everyone who cooks fish says it's pretty easy, but I don't see how easy it is yet. So of these different dishes that we've talked about so far, which type of food do you think is the most well known? Is it spaghetti with clams? Is it black-eyed peas and rice? Is it vegetable soup with bread? Yeah, we should all get together. After this whole shebang is over, we should all get together and have like a huge pizza party. You can count me in for sure. You think pizza is the type of food that is most well known around the world? That's definitely a possibility, because we realize that wherever we go in the world, usually we can find pizza. Now, considering that the three of you are Italian, I'm not, I'm American, but maybe all of us have had different food experiences. Considering the third argument, which country has the best food? Now, we all might be a little biased by thinking, well, my country has the best food, or my mom is the best cook. But it's possible that another country or another place can have really good food. And dare we admit it, that maybe their food is better than ours. I've experienced a few different types of cuisines during my life so far, and I enjoy Indian food a lot. I love Thai food. I think Mexican food is delicious. Thank you, Elena. Italy has the best food. What was I saying? Thai, cross that out. Indian, forget it. Mexican, who are they? Okay, this isn't because you're Italian, but you believe that Italy has the best food. So, Elena, think about why. And Giacomo, you like tasting different types of cuisine. Me too. Oh, Teresa, and you like Thai food as well. I love Thai food. In fact, I used to have a friend in the US who was a great cook. You like Mexican food also, and green curry. I know. Well, it's nice that we all have had different cuisine experiences, because especially, what about British food? Well, I can't say I'm very familiar with British food. I was in the UK several years ago, and if someone were to ask me the typical dish in the UK or in London or in other parts of the UK, I don't know what a typical dish would be other than fish and chips, but that seems somewhat stereotypical. Does anyone have any opinions about British food? Has anyone ever tried British food aside from fish and chips? I'm so happy you guys are here today. I really am. Okay, we've already caught Tom Yang soup. Incredible. Okay, Elena, what did you say? That our country, being Italy, offers different excellent dishes. Yes, and that's something that not many people realize, that as you travel from region to region in Italy, the cuisine changes. Every region has their own specialty. And that's something that really needs to be appreciated. Tom Yang soup. Now, Tom Yang soup, is that British today's, or is that from somewhere else? Sunday roast, I'm assuming, would be pot roast, which we make also in the States. Exactly, Elena. From north to south, we find a wide range of recipes, and they're all delicious. I know there are certain dishes that I've tasted on the east side that I don't necessarily find here. Pies are great in my opinion. Now, Giacomo, are you talking about fruit pies or actually meat pies? Hey, Roberta, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're talking about food, Roberta, so any contributions you can add to this conversation will be appreciated very much. Okay, so the soup you mentioned before today is Thai soup. I can't say I've tried that yet, but it's definitely something I'm going to have to look into the next time I eat out. Now, Roberta, considering we're talking about food, maybe you can tell us about a traditional dish that we can find in your country or in the region of your country where you are from. As we move on to the next slide, Roberta is going to share with us some wonderful Irish cuisine. I don't know any Irish dishes at all, I honestly, so it'll be a new experience for me as well. While while Roberta is preparing her answer, let's see, bacon and cabbage. Really? I've never heard, stereotypically, I've always understood that Irish people eat a lot of potatoes. Is that true? Boiled bacon with cabbage. I've never had that. I've never even considered boiling bacon because in the US we always have eggs and bacon, which is a breakfast dish. It's really delicious. It sounds delicious. You'll have to make it for us right after we have our welcome back pizza party at English in the City. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide. This is a food quiz. Let's see whether or not you are a foodie. What's a foodie? Is a foodie a person who eats a lot of food? A foodie is a person that knows their food. And Roberta, okay, you've confirmed my suspicion that Irish people eat potatoes in every possible way. We don't realize the variety of dishes that you can create from a potato. It's actually incredible. It's an incredible, incredible food that a lot of us underestimate its potential. So let's take a look at our foodie quiz. Are you a foodie? Do you know your food? There are 5 multiple choice questions on your screen. Let's take a look at the first one. Now, as you come up with the answers, you can either write them down off to the side or send them to me here in our chat, and then we'll consider them all together. The first one says, ice cream was invented in. Now, I love ice cream. I especially love ice cream on a hot summer day or even a warm spring afternoon. I don't usually eat ice cream in the winter, though. That's something I haven't been able to tackle, but I love ice cream. And in your opinion, was ice cream invented in a warmer climate or a cooler climate? Someplace like China or in Germany or Mexico? Think about that for a minute. Who invented ice cream? China, you think it's China? Well, that's definitely a possibility. Let's put a tack in that, and then we're going to go on to the second one. Elena says that ice cream was invented in China. All right. We're going to go over all the answers together. So, thank you today. So 1A, 2A, 3B. Okay. Number 2. Hi, Sabrina, how are you? Welcome. Today we're talking about food. So glad you can join us. Right now, we're doing a foodie quiz. Yes, today's is the winner. We're taking a foodie quiz, Sabrina. We're going to see how much we know about the history of food. Now, we've agreed that ice cream was invented in China. Let us know what you think. Teresa has added that the English muffin was first baked in the USA. And Teresa has also added that when carrots were first grown, they were purple. Now, I love the color purple. I don't know if you can see my purple t-shirt here. I have a purple t-shirt on, and I also put on a little bit of purple eyeshadow to go with my purple t-shirt because I love purple. I've never actually considered carrots to be purple. Okay, and Teresa has also said that number 4, chocolate was first made by the Aztecs. Does anybody know where the Aztecs were found? Is there an Aztectopia? Is there an Aztec city somewhere? Where were the Aztecs? And did they make chocolate? French fries, which we all consider an American staple food. If you want French fries, even though they're French fries, we consider them very, very American. But who invented them? Belgium, France, or in England? Aztecs? The English muffin is a trap. The actual English muffin, well, that's another story. That's probably for another focus. Okay, Giacomo, you agree that number 3 is B. So when carrots were first grown, they were purple. Elena, thank you for clearing that up for us. The Aztecs were actually in Mexico before Mexico was Mexico. And thank you, Sabrina, for your contribution. French fries were created in France or Belgium. Today's it says Belgium. All right, let's take a look now at our answers. Let's go on to the next screen. And here we're going to find them one by one. We said that the correct answer for number 1 is A. Ice cream was invented in China. It was made by mixing rice and milk to create a syrup that was then frozen. So ice cream is something that varies from country to country, but the idea is still the same. I think they were purple, the purple carrots, and now we can find them again on supermarket shelves. I have never seen a purple carrot. I'm going to have to check that out. The correct answer for number 2, the English muffin was actually baked in the USA before it was brought to England. Traditional English muffins aren't actually muffins. They're not like those little cupcakes with the muffin top. They're actually flat circular sandwiches that when you cut them open, they have these little craters in them like the moon, and they hold the butter. So instead of having a slice of toast that's kind of dry and it sticks in your throat, you can toast an English muffin. I know, Teresa, she's on fire today. And you toast an English muffin and you spread the butter on it and it just sits there in the craters in the English muffin, and it's so good. It's so good. I know, Teresa has studied a lot. Let's take a look at the answer for number 3. Correct answer, carrots were in fact purple. Fantastic. Thank you, Roberta. And you love purple carrots in your house. Well, what do purple carrots taste like? Can you tell us? It says that the orange carrot was cultivated because it tasted better than the purple variety. I don't see how food can be better than purple. I would love to eat some purple food. The correct answer for number 4 is C. Chocolate was originally made as a drink, so not as a chocolate bar or those little bachi that you find in the shops, but it was actually a chocolate drink made by Aztecs and Mayans from South America. So we know that the Aztecs and Mayans were concentrated in the Mexican area before Mexico was Mexico. Elena, you've never tried purple carrots either. I think that's something we need to put on the list right after our pizza party, right after some boiled bacon and cabbage, and we're gonna have some purple carrots too. Let's put a pin in that and remember it for next time. All right, let's keep going on our focus. Okay, we're going to take a look at this text. Okay, I'll read it for you, but we can all read it together on the screen. This is talking about a staple food. What is a staple food? A staple food can vary from country to country. Okay, you've tried, Giacomo, you've tried the purple carrots, but you prefer the orange ones. You've never tried purple carrots either, Sabrina. Well, Roberta, why don't you tell us what purple carrots taste like? Because none of us have tried them. Not Elena, not Giacomo, not Sabrina, and not I. So in your opinion, Roberta, which carrot tastes better? And Teresa hasn't tasted purple carrots either. I think this is definitely something that we need to investigate, the mystery of trying purple carrots. Let's take a look now at our staple food. A staple food is something that you always have in the house. And your staple food can vary from country to region to culture. For example, if someone, an American says, it's time to go to the supermarket, what are the first 3 things that usually we have on our shopping list? Milk, eggs, butter, and cheese. I don't know why, but stereotypically when you make, Giacomo says a staple food is bread, excellent. And he also adds that another staple food is pasta. So these are things automatically that you have to have in your house if you're here. But for example, at my house in the United States, we had an abundance Sabrina, a staple food is water. Yes, it is. Water is a necessity. It's necessary for life. Yes, eggs are also considered a staple food because you can bake with them, you can cook with them, you can eat an egg by itself or with other things. Apples are definitely fresh foods. I don't know if apples are considered a staple food or not, but it could be depending on where you're from, that you will always have apples in your house. Let's look through this text and consider the staple food pasta. Now we know in Italy, every household has an abundance of pasta. And Roberta adds, hi, the purple carrots taste the same more or less. The oranges added later on as carrots were medicine too. Very interesting. Thank you, Roberta. That's good to know. Food for thought. Let's take a look at our text. Pasta is eaten all over the world. But where was it first eaten? When most people think of pasta, it is immediately associated with Italy. There you go. But some would argue that pasta was in fact brought to Italy by Marco Polo in 1295 when he returned from China. Before that, it had been eaten by the Chinese as early as 3000 BC. But what the Chinese had created were actually rice noodles. They were similar to pasta, but were made using rice flour instead of wheat. Another popular theory is that pasta was introduced after Sicily had been invaded by Arabs in the 9th century AD. Wherever it came from, pasta has become a staple on tables around the world. So from this text, we see that pasta is a staple food, not just here in Italy anymore, but it's become a staple food all over the world because there are a variety. There is a whole variation of pasta that we can eat depending on the form, depending on the size, depending on whether it's fresh or dry, and also the ingredients that go into it. And lo and behold, pasta originated in China. They made their rice noodles. So they weren't making wheat noodles, they were making rice noodles. So we've learned a little bit about this staple food pasta, and now we want to find passives in our text. We said before that a passive phrase is when the object becomes the subject. What does wheat mean? That's a good question. Wheat is a plant, Sabrina. Wheat is a plant. Think of a wide field that is somewhat golden. In this field, you see tall, slender stalks that grow up. And on the top, they have these sprouts that come out. And this is wheat. But they pull the plant, they take the tops off, and they grind it down, and that becomes flour. So the wheat is the plant. When you grind down the wheat, you make it into a white dust that becomes flour. I don't know if that helped or not. But when we make flour, what do we make from flour? We make bread from flour. We can make pasta from flour. We can make, what else can we make from flour? We can thicken soups with flour and also make different sauces from flour. We can bake cakes from flour. Oh, you're welcome, Sabrina. And something that in the US that my grandmother used to do, you can make drop biscuits from flour. Basically, you make a dough like you're going to make pizza, but it's very, very fast. And you take little balls of the dough and you bake them in the oven, and those become biscuits, but in a matter of 20 minutes. And these are biscuits that you can eat also for breakfast. Okay, so going back to our text, talking about the staple food pasta that originated in China as a rice noodle, and then they modified the system of making it, and they started making wheat pasta. We want to find our passive phrases in the text. As I said before, the passive phrase is when the object becomes the subject and the original subject is either completely eliminated from the phrase or stuck at the end. The example that we used in the beginning of the focus, Sabrina, was actually the boy throws the ball. In the passive sentence, however, the ball is thrown by the boy. So we can eliminate by the boy and just have the ball is thrown, which is our passive sentence, or we can add by the boy to indicate who has thrown the ball. We also need to consider why we use the passive, not just how we construct a passive phrase, but why do we need a passive? And there are two reasons why we use passive sentences. While you're thinking about the reason why, let's go through our text about pasta, the staple food, and see if we can find passive phrases in our text. Okay, we can start from the beginning of the text. Pasta is eaten all over the world. But where was it first eaten? We said before at the beginning of our focus that in order to construct a passive phrase, we need the verb to be, is or are, and we need the past participle. Do we see any examples of that in the first part of our text? Pasta is eaten all over the world. But where was it first eaten? Does anybody see an example of a passive phrase? Is eaten. Very good, Sabrina. And there's our first example of a passive phrase. Pasta is eaten all over the world. Very good, Elena. So we're in agreement then that the first passive phrase that we find in our text is eaten. And we see it's passive because we have the verb to be, is, and the past participle of eat, eaten. Let's keep going. Pasta is eaten all over the world, but where was it first eaten? As you find passive phrases in our text, just jot them down in the conversation part of the screen so we can move on pretty quickly. Okay, let's see if we can find the second example of a passive phrase. We know that in order to create a passive sentence, whether it's present passive, past passive, present perfect passive, or also past perfect passive or future passive, there are a whole bunch of passives. We need to change we keep the verb to be, is or are. We can also put it in the past, which makes it a past passive. Hi, Roberta. Oh, I didn't realize you left. Pasta was in fact brought. Very good, Elena. So the next example, was it first eaten? Okay, excellent, Sabrina. Very good. Pasta is eaten, present passive. But where was it first eaten? Past passive. Okay, see you later, Roberta. Talk to you soon. Thanks for stopping in, okay? It was great to hear from you. And then we have it is immediately associated with, thank you, Sabrina, excellent point, which is present passive. Thank you, Teresa. It had been eaten, but before it had been eaten, was in fact brought to Italy, which is past passive. What makes it past passive and not present passive? We see the difference in the verb to be. In our present passive, we have is eaten, is immediately associated, but in our past, we have was eaten and was brought. Let's keep going. Can we find any more passives? Teresa says, it has been eaten. Thank you. And here we have an example, not of present passive, not of past passive. What tense is that? Had created and had been eaten. Thank you, Elena. Had been eaten is past perfect passive. How do we make the past perfect passive? This is so incredible. We take the past of the verb to be, so had, been, which is the participle of the verb to be, and are present perfect participle. No, our past participle. So had been eaten is our past perfect passive. Let's keep going. Past perfect. Thank you. Today's you're so good at English. Have you taken this focus before by chance? Sabrina says had created. But what the Chinese had created were actually rice noodles. Okay, Sabrina said that this part of the phrase here, the Chinese had created, were rice noodles. That's actually, Sabrina, an active sentence. In order to make it passive, what can we do? The Chinese had created rice noodles. We said that in order to make a passive, the object becomes the subject. Here, the object is rice noodles. So now rice noodles becomes the subject. Rice noodles had been created by the Chinese. So what you've said, Sabrina, is that this sentence here is actually active, but in order to make it passive, the rice noodles would become the subject. Okay, let's keep going. They were similar to pasta, but were made. We have another example of past passive. Was introduced, past passive. And our last one, had been invaded. Another popular theory is that pasta was introduced after Sicily had been invaded by Arabs in the 9th century AD. So why are these sentences, thank you, Elena, Sicily had been invaded by the Arabs. Why are these sentences passive? Why not just make it all active? I mean, it would be so much easier, right? People eat pasta all over the world. Who were the first people to eat pasta? Pasta is associated with Italy. What? Why not just keep all the sentences active instead of making them passive? Why do we need passive? What do you think? We know that often we find passive in newspapers or on the news. Think of when something incredible has happened on the news. For example, the bank has been robbed or a bomb has been dropped. We don't necessarily know who robbed the bank, and we might not always know who dropped the bomb. So usually we use passive when we don't know who has done the action. So if it's a bank robbery, I don't know, a terrorist attack, or some kind of other crime, then they use the passive in their headline because they don't know yet who the criminal is. Can anyone think of another reason why we might want to use the passive? If we think of to accentuate the object, very good, Elena. So, for example, if we want our listener to focus on the object, then it's not important who has eaten it. For example, pasta is eaten all over the world. Do we need to know exactly, specifically, who ate the pasta? Did Giacomo eat the pasta? Did Elena eat the pasta? Did Jennifer eat the pasta? Did Sabrina eat the pasta? It's not important. What is important is that all over the world, people are eating pasta. So we want our listener to focus on the fact that pasta is eaten all over the world, not who has eaten it. Okay, so those are two reasons why we use the passive. Because we don't know who has done an action, or because it's not important who has done the action. And the object itself, we want people to focus on the object itself. Okay, now keeping all this information in mind about the staple food pasta that originated in China as a rice noodle and then eventually evolved into wheat noodles, and who brought the pasta back to Italy, and what people think about Sicily, etc., etc. We want to form questions from these prompts on the screen. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions that we can make. All right, so before we start, take a look at all of them, and then little by little, as you construct a question, just put it up there in our conversation box. Okay, so our first prompt is, which country associated pasta? Keep in mind that your question needs to be passive. How do we form a passive sentence or a passive question? You need the verb to be in present or past. Is, are, was, were. And then you need the past participle of the verb, which we already have here. Okay, keep in mind, if we're going to construct a present passive question or a past passive question, when do we use past or present perfect? I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one hint. Which country is associated to pasta? Very good, Giacomo, thank you. So that is our first question. Which country is associated with pasta? Which country is associated with pasta? Because associate with. Thank you, Teresa. Which country is typically associated with pasta? Very good. So that's our first question. Which country is associated with pasta? There's our present passive question. And what's the answer? Which country is associated with pasta? This country right here, Italy, is associated with pasta. Thank you, Sabrina. What food had created the Chinese in 3000 BC? Sabrina, now we said that what food had created the Chinese? Here you've constructed a question that is still an active question. Can anyone help us out here? Because in order to make a passive question, what food was created by the Chinese in 3000 BC? Thank you, Elena. We need by the Chinese, what food was created? Keep in mind, Sabrina, that when we're forming a passive phrase, we have the verb to be right next to our participle, unless we have something in the middle. We'll talk about that in a second. So for example, the boy throws the ball. The ball is thrown. Which country is associated? In all the questions before, we have the verb to be and the participle. The verb to be and the participle. And the same goes for this question here. Which food, let me get it. Which food was created? The verb to be in the past. And then we have our participle. Which food was created by the Chinese in 3000 BC? We know it's passive because we have the verb to be in the past. And right next to it, we have our past participle. Okay, let's take a look at the next prompt. Where pasta created? This is kind of easy. I mean, I think this is the easiest one. Does anyone have any ideas? Where was pasta created? Very good. Now here actually, if you notice, Sabrina, I said that often you will find the verb to be next to the past participle. But in this case, no, because we have the subject in the middle. Where was pasta created? In China. Thank you. Pasta was created in China. So if we go back to our first question, which country is associated with pasta? That's this country right here, Italy. You're welcome, Sabrina. What food was created by the Chinese? Pasta was created by the Chinese. And our last question, or our question so far, where was pasta created? In China. Let's move on to our next prompt, okay? Which part of Italy invaded Arabs 9th century AD? Can we form our passive question with these prompts? So let's put them in order, add our verb to be where we need to put it, and make our passive question. Let's take a look. Which part of Italy invaded Arabs 9th century AD. We know we need the verb to be somewhere, somewhere. And we know we have our past participle. Which part of Italy was invaded by the Arabs? Yes, Elena, by the Arabs, because we're talking about a people as a group in 9th century AD. Yes, I understood it was invaded. Okay, thank you, Elena. Which part of Italy was invaded by Arabs in the 9th century AD? No problem, Elena. In the 9th century AD. Which part of Italy was invaded? Do we remember from the text? If you can, here's another little challenge for you. If you can, put your answer also in the passive. Also in the passive. So you can answer the question, which part of Italy was invaded by the Arabs in the 9th century AD? Oh, Sicily was invaded by the Arabs in the 9th century AD. Very good, Teresa. Sicily was invaded. And here we have Sicily. Thank you, Giacomo. You too. Sicily was invaded by the Arabs. And here we have our passive answer to our passive question. Sicily was invaded by the Arabs. If we wanted to make this an active sentence, what would we do? The Arabs invaded Sicily. So Sicily then becomes the object. The Arabs becomes the subject once again, and we have the Arabs invaded Sicily. In order to make it passive, the object becomes the subject. Sicily was invaded by the Arabs. Okay, where pasta eaten today? Let's do our final question. Let's make a passive question from our prompt. Is it present passive? Is it past passive? Does anyone care? Because it seems that we've been working mostly with present and past passive questions. So I'm betting it's one or the other. And I'll give you a hint. Today. Is today past or present? In your opinion? I mean, everyone in the world eats pasta now. You can't go anywhere without finding pasta on a menu in a restaurant, or even going somewhere in the world where someone doesn't know how to prepare a plate of pasta. It's definitely become a staple food all over the world. And honestly, growing up, I didn't eat very much pasta. I ate more potatoes, like Roberta, baked potatoes, mashed potatoes. Where is pasta eaten today? Elva! Elva, it's so nice to hear you. Thank you. Where is pasta eaten today? And here we have an example of our present passive question. And the answer, thank you, Giacomo, pasta is eaten all over the world. And that's our passive answer to our passive question. All right, let's keep going. The next slide. Pasta is going to be eaten in my kitchen very soon. Today's, I wish I could stop by. I really do. I wish I could stop by. But one of these days, soon, I will, as soon as you invite me. Okay, now we have on our next slide a famous dish. We want to use passives to tell the history of a famous dish. Now, I have the resources here, so I'm actually going to put a resource on the screen so we can look at it together and then rewrite it in the passive tense, okay? For example, if we remember our text about pasta, which is a staple food in Italy and we realized all over the world because everybody eats pasta. In fact, Terry's going to be eating pasta very soon. Tell us, Terry, how are you preparing pasta today? The pasta has just been eaten in my kitchen. Very good. Notice what Terry and Elena did. Pasta is going to be eaten. Here we have an example of a passive sentence, but not in present passive, not in past passive. Is going to be. Can anyone tell me what tense Teresa has used in her passive sentence? Yes, by someone else, Elena, because Elena's here with us having our English chit chat time. Pasta is going to be eaten. Here we have another example of a passive sentence. It's not present. It's not past. What tense is it? Can anyone tell us? I know Terry knows what she just did. Pasta is going to be eaten. Going to be. Is it present? Is it past? Or is it? I know, right? Terry, she's out of control. She's on fire today with her going to be future. She has going to be her future passive. Fantastic, Terry. Pasta is going to be eaten in my kitchen. Here we have a future passive. And Elena has given us an example of pasta has just been eaten. Very good, Elena. And Teresa, we have our future passive. Whereas Elena has given us an example of what passive? Pasta has just been eaten. Very good, Giacomo. We have our future passive by Terry is going to be eaten, going to be eaten. I'm also waiting to hear your recipe of choice. Excellent, Elena. Elena gave us an example of present perfect passive. Pasta has just been eaten. And we know that it's the immediate past because Elena, being as clever as she is, has added just, which gives us the idea of the immediate past, has just been eaten. Present perfect passive. Very good, Giacomo, which means that whoever has eaten this pasta probably still has some sauce or something on their mouth because they still have the taste of the pasta on their tongue because they've just eaten it. All right, before we finish up for today, let's take a look at this last slide. I'm going to give you an example of a food, and we're going to rewrite the text or re-talk about the text, let's say, using passive tenses. Okay, now when we spoke about pasta before, the staple foods, these are examples of passive sentences that talk about pasta. For example, present, pasta is dried to keep it fresh. An example of present perfect passive, pasta has been spread all over the world, meaning the habit of eating pasta has been spread, not actual pasta being spread all over the world. An example of past passive, pasta was not created in China. An example of past perfect passive, pasta has been eaten in Italy before Marco Polo returned from China. These are just examples of different passive tenses. Now I'm going to show you a resource of a type of food, and we're going to talk about it together. Let me see if you can see that. Let me see. I don't know if you can see this. Otherwise, if you can't see it, let me see. I don't know if I can load it up here. Otherwise, I'll show it to you. No, I don't think you can see it. Hang on. All right, I have the text right here. And I'm going to hold it up to the screen so you can see it. Okay. If you can see that, these are hamburgers. These are hamburgers. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you some of these sentences, and you're going to see if you can put them in the passive for me, if you can. Okay, this is a little bit difficult because we're doing it all by listening, but let's give it a shot. 1800s. This is the history of the hamburger. Hamburgers are something that people all over the world know about now. So it's not isolated just in the United States because people may think that only Americans eat hamburgers. Hamburgers, you saw my hamburgers. Okay, I'm going to give you an active sentence, okay, talking about the history of hamburgers. I'm going to repeat it a few times, and let's see if we can't put it in the passive, okay? 1800s. German sailors bring hamburgers to America. German sailors bring hamburgers to America. In fact, if you'd like, I can write it down and show it to you, if that would be easier. You let me know what you need. German sailors bring hamburgers to America. And we want to put that in our passive sentence. German sailors bring hamburgers I'm writing it down for you. Hamburgers to America. Elena, you are fantastic. Hamburgers and Giacomo, wonderful. Hamburgers were brought to America by German sailors. Hamburgers are brought to America by German sailors. Fantastic. So here we have an example of which passive. Can anyone tell us? Because both Giacomo and Elena used the same passive tense. We know that in order to make a passive sentence, we have the verb to be. Yes, you are, Elena. You're improving every minute. We know that in order to make a passive sentence, we need the verb to be. And we need our past participle. Our past participle. Yes, you are. And the lessons do work, Elena. The lessons do work. Okay, can anyone tell me the tense that we've used in the last sentence that Elena and Giacomo have shared with us? Hamburgers were brought to America by German sailors. Is it present? Is it future? Is it present perfect? What do you think? Because we know that in order to make a passive sentence, we have our verb to be plus the participle. Past passive, excellent. Hamburgers were brought to America by German sailors. Now, we said before that we use the passive because we want the person to concentrate on the object, which has become the subject. So, for example, I gave you the active sentence before. German sailors brought hamburgers to America. But now we want to make the object the subject. Hamburgers were brought to America. We can eliminate German sailors completely because what we want people to recognize is the importance of hamburgers being brought to America. It doesn't matter that they were brought by the Germans or by somebody else. We want people to focus. Simple past passive. Excellent, Elena. That's exactly what it is. A simple past passive sentence. And right now we're talking about why we use the passive. We use the passive for two reasons. Do you remember what they were? Why do we use the passive? Because it sounds nice. Well, why not? We should just always speak in active. We often find passive sentences on the news or in newspapers. Why do we use the passive? We often use the passive if certain actions have happened. The lesson has been taught by Jennifer. Yes. Oh, I didn't tell you my name in the beginning. Oh, thank you, Giacomo. The lesson has been taught by Jennifer. Giacomo is giving me another example of a passive sentence. Has been taught. Before we wrap it up today, does anyone want to let me know what tense Giacomo has used? Has been taught. We have has, which is present, been, which is, and taught, which is our participle. We said before that we use the passive because we want to emphasize the object. Very good. There's one reason why we use the passive, because we want people to focus on the object, which is now the new subject. And also because we don't know who committed an action, or we don't really care. So the lesson has been taught by Jennifer, emphasizes it's present perfect. Thank you very much, Giacomo. It emphasizes the lesson itself, that it's been taught. That's what we want people to understand. It doesn't really matter who teaches the lesson anyway, as long as we get our English lessons, right? Exactly, Elena, because the subject, meaning the original subject, the person who has completed the action, is not important anymore. Okay, listen, we know that in order to make a passive sentence, we use the verb to be, is, are, was, were, and our past participle if we're doing present or past passive. We heard examples of, or we read examples of other passive tenses in our comments, like the going to passive and the past perfect passive, which some people shared with us as well. And so keep that in mind, the grammatical structure of our passive sentences, and also the reasons why we use passive, because we don't know who, because we don't care who, and because we want to emphasize the object. Okay, listen, everybody, we've wrapped up our focus for today talking about the history of food. If you don't have any questions, then I'm going to sign off for now, and I'll see you again soon. Remember, have a great afternoon and keep positive. Okay, everybody, have a great afternoon and see you next time.